everybody, Alex Super here from SorareMLB, back with the final, maybe, the logical final video of our tier list series. Of course, yes, I did skip tier 3 because there's far too many. I might go back and revisit those maybe later in the year or maybe in the off season. Tier 3 might be worth looking at to help you buy things. I don't know, but there's just so many. We could break it up into a couple of different videos. But for now, we are here. We are doing tier 1, the one that everyone cares about. If you win a contest, or, top 3 in a couple of them, who you should be happy about in the tier 1 range and who maybe you shouldn't be so happy about. If you haven't watched a video prior to this one, make sure to go back and check those out. They will help you as much as this one will. So what we take into account is obviously skill level, but also position and position scarcity, and age. Those are the 3 big things. If I know about their price, maybe it might influence things, and maybe I might boost someone up because I know you can just flip them and get someone at a higher tier for about the same price. We'll take a look into that as well. Before we get into everything, if you haven't joined SorareMLB, if you haven't followed the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, helps us immensely. Also, if you want the projections that we do each game week for MLB and NBA, head on over to patreon.com/SorareMLB. $5 for just the projections, $10 for everything else, including the Discord, pricing information, and full access to the SorareMLB app, which can be found on the Apple App Store. All right, let's get into it. Tier 1, here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with a layup. It's Ronald Acuna Jr. Comes up first alphabetically, and we are just going to move him straight to the S tier. Ronald Acuna Jr. is the best player in the game. He is the best Sorare player in the game. And just in case you doubt that, after 117 games, Ronald Acuna is over 140 points ahead of Shohei Ohtani for the top scorer in Major League Baseball and on Sorare. 1,509 points after 117. 1,368 for Ohtani, and then a bunch of people bunched up in that area. Acuna is the easiest entry into the S tier. I don't need to sell you on him. He is the MVP so long as he stays healthy, and maybe even if he doesn't. This one's a little tougher. Pete Alonso, kind of in the middle of what we look for in terms of where we put someone on this tier list. Alonso does a lot of things that we want. He hits homers. That is the main thing. He is the 21st top scorer so far this year, but he's also 28, which isn't too old, and it's not very young. He also plays a very deep position in the corner infield and at first base. He just kind of does what you want your first baseman to do. He's great. He's on a homer tear, but I have a hard time moving him any higher than the C row for a tier 1. I think if you get him, fine. You're going to be plugging him in just about every week. He might not help you every week because there's going to be a couple of stinkers in there. He's also going to have a couple of weeks where he puts up 60 points because he hit 4 or 5 homers like he did, the week that I'm recording this. So I don't know if he might be a C-. We'll see as we move on. All right, moving on to Yordan Alvarez. Okay, a little different. Plays the outfield. There's a little less depth there. He hits a ton of bombs. He's also injured quite a bit, but he is 26 years old. The extra 2 years over Alonso makes me very happy. He does hit for more average. He does strike out less. I am going to drop Yordan Alvarez in the B tier. I would actually have him in the A tier if he could stay healthy. If he puts together a long run of health, then he's moving up into the A tier pretty easily, and he might by the end of this video. All right, now we move on to Randy Arozarena. Arozarena is actually not an incredible scorer in Sorare. He's very fun, but, he doesn't even have 20 homers as of this point in the season, and he's only got 15 stolen bases. Something that you want out of your tier 1s is either a ton of youth, a ton of homers, a ton of steals, or at least a mix of all of them. He's 28 years old, plays the outfield, which is a little bit helpful, but with 18 homers and 15 stolen bases, Arozarena is the 36th top scorer so far this season, behind guys like Nathaniel Lowe, who I wasn't too high on in the tier 2 video. Lane Thomas is outscoring him this season. Justin Turner is outscoring him this season. I'm honestly going to drop Arozarena in the D tier. I hate to do it because he's an electric player. I love watching him. He's very fun. He's a star in the game, but as far as a fantasy point scorer, I don't really care for him. I don't really think he moves the needle a ton. Also, the fact that I just said Pete Alonso is kind of meh in terms of the T1 pool. He scored 110 more points than Randy Arozarena at this point. So I got to keep Randy in the D tier. I think he's a borderline tier 2, tier 1. I would love to get him as a tier 2, but as a tier 1, not so much. All right, now to Mookie Betts, who at 30 years old isn't as young as you generally want someone in this range, but there's a thing that makes him an elite card now on Sorare, and that's his middle infield eligibility. He's the highest scoring middle infielder this season by over 100 points ahead of Ozzie Albies. So Mookie Betts in the middle infield, he's the 5th overall scorer on the season. So that is a pretty easy A tier for me. He might actually be an S tier. The only thing that is going to keep me from moving him into the S tier is just that age. 30 years old, it's not very helpful. But, the next 4 or 5 years you get out of Mookie Betts, if you have his middle infield card, which you would win, that's an easy A for me. The top middle infield player where, there's not a ton of depth, I absolutely love Mookie Betts here. Now, here's a guy who's got everything that we talked about. He's got youth. He's 22 years old. He doesn't play corner infield. He plays the outfield. He's got immense speed, maybe the fastest player in baseball, and he hits homers. 21 on the year, 36 stolen bases. He is the 9th highest scorer on the season, and again, he is just 22 years old. It's Corbin Carroll. He is an endgame player. He is an S-tier player. He may regress to the mean a little bit as he gets older, or at least in the next couple of years, but again, he's 22. He's got it all. He could be the next guy like Acuna, maybe, even more of a speedster. Once he learns to run the base paths a little bit more and, gets a good read on some of these pitchers, he might actually eclipse Acuna in stolen bases. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it could happen. Would I rather have Carroll than Acuna? No. But is it close? No. But if I won Corbin Carroll for winning any competition, I would be more than happy. I would be so happy to have him on my team. And frankly, I would love to have him on my team just by buying him in the market. Okay, now we have our first pitcher, and this one's tough. Garrett Cole is 32 years old. He's still an elite pitcher. He's the 2nd highest scorer this season behind Spencer Strider. But also he's a pitcher. He's not going to resell for much, and he's not going to give you such a high ceiling that it's going to win you game weeks like some of these hitters. The great thing about Garrett Cole is generally his floor. He doesn't get knocked around a ton, and he can put up, 10 plus strikeout games, about as much as anyone in Major League Baseball other than Strider at this point. He's fallen off a little bit recently, and I'm trying to avoid the recency bias. I think he's an easy C here because of the age. He is elite. I mean, he's a top 2 player at his position, and that's generally something that you want out of a tier 1 reward. But I'm not getting super excited if I win Cole. I'm just like, okay, that's good. All right, this one might split the audience a little bit. It's Rafael Devers. He projects very well. He's still pretty young at 26 years old. He does play corner infield. He projects as the number 2 hitter in 2024, but this season he's had kind of a down year. 29th overall, 951 points. He does come in ahead of Arozarena. He doesn't steal bases at all. He hits for a decent amount of power, but not the same as Alonso. But he does hit for a lot more average and has more than double the amount of doubles of Alonso. So given the age at 26, I'm going to put him right there with Alonso. Alonso, I would say, is on a better team, but I don't even know that that's true. I think the Mets might be further along still than the Red Sox, but I don't know. I would still rather have Devers, I think, than Arozarena in this tier. But I could see you moving really either of those guys. Any of those guys in the C tier, I could see you moving to the D tier, except maybe Cole. I think he's a solid C. If you talked to me a month or two ago, I would have easily thrown Elly De La Cruz into the S tier. He's 21. He's a middle infielder. You've seen the tools. He's as fast as anybody. He's going to steal a lot of bases. He's going to hit for power. But the league is starting to adjust to him, and he's had a rough month since he came up and started on a tear. The thing that complicates me putting him in the A row right now is I don't know that I'd rather have him than Yordan Alvarez at this point. That said, he's 9 years younger than Mookie Betts. It really is just that injury situation for Alvarez that has me keeping him in the B tier. And again, I said I would move him into the A tier if he showed me that he could stay healthy for a long period of time. Thus, if I won an Ellie in Tier 1 for winning a contest, I think I'd be pretty elated. I'm having a hard time with this one. I'm going to drop him into the B tier because I need to see more from him. I really do. All right, age-wise, position-wise, Freddie Freeman doesn't excite me a whole lot. He's 33, he plays the corner infield, but he is the top corner infielder unless you count Shohei Ohtani, who is eligible at the position. But Freddie Freeman's only scored 34 points fewer than Shohei Ohtani this season. 43 doubles at this point. He doesn't strike out a ton. He's very, very consistent. Kind of the thing that you get with Cole, you get with Freeman. A floor, but also immense upside. Because of the age, I can't move him up to the A tier. 33 is just a little older for me, but this is probably wrong. I'm probably wrong in putting him here. I would love to have a Freddie Freeman. He does so much, so often. He also steals bases. He's got 16 stolen bases on the season as well. It's just a matter of how long can he actually keep this up? I don't know. I have a hard time, and he is much better than Pete Alonso and Rafael Devers. He does way more than Alvarez or De La Cruz, but I'm getting youth with those guys, and I just don't get that with Freddie Freeman. And next year, he could have a similar situation to Paul Goldschmidt where he just falls off. I'm going to say B+. I want to put him up there with Betts, but I'm having a hard time with that. Let's wait and see. I could see him moving up by the end of this thing. I keep doubting Adolis Garcia, and he keeps proving me wrong. Doesn't steal a lot of bases, only has 7 so far this season, but he does have 29 home runs in the middle of a very good Texas offense. Playing the outfield is okay. I still don't know that I would be happy for winning him in a contest. If I finish second in one in Adolis Garcia, I'd be okay. If I finish third, I would think, yeah, that makes sense. I like him more than Rosarena. I like him more than a lot of guys. I think he's pretty solidly a B. I would rather have him than Alonso or Devers for sure. I don't love that he's 30 years old, but I'd still rather have him than the guys in the C tier. I'm actually going to do a little bit of rearranging. Mookie Betts has 31 home runs this year in the middle infield. I mean, that's more than Freeman. That's more than Acuna. He doesn't steal the bases like Acuna. He's only got 8. He's not got a ton of speed, but boy, in the middle infield, that's really solid. And the more I do this video, the more that 30 doesn't feel that old. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Betts into the S tier. I'm going to move Alvarez, De La Cruz, and Freeman all into the A tier and feel fine with that. And also feel fine with leaving Adolis Garcia in B. All right, we got youth on our side in this one, but as far as scoring goes, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just has not brought the juice this year. Only 18 homers out of a guy that we really expected to hit a ton of homers. He's being outscored this season by Jeimer Candelario, Spencer Steer, and again, Nathaniel Lowe. He's 24. He's got a ton of potential, and I don't know that he's holding well in Tier 1. Would I rather have him than Randy Arozarena? I think so. Would I rather have him than Pete Alonso? Long term, maybe. But as we've talked about before, I don't want maybes in the future. I want what have you done for me lately? And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is having a very down year. He projects incredibly well. The projections are still high going forward. So I'm just going to dump him into the C tier. But boy, I'd like to see a lot more out of him. And I could see him falling down this list and ending up in Tier 2. Okay, so here's a guy who is an S tier in our Tier 2 video, but has since moved up into Tier 1. So now we need to reassess him as a Tier 1. Gunnar Henderson is an incredible prospect. Gunnar Henderson is also scoring worse than Vladimir Guerrero this season. As a matter of fact, he's scoring worse than Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Andres Jimenez, Will Smith, C.J. Abrams, Ryan McMahon, Isaac Paredes, and Luis Arraez. I'd like to remind you, he is a 22-year-old shortstop. He is a 70 grade prospect. He's very good. He doesn't belong in Tier 1 just yet. Again, the youth, I think I'd rather have him than a Rosarena, so I can't put him in the F tier. I wouldn't be terribly excited to get him as a Tier 1, so he's going to go into the D tier. I could see him moving down. It's hard to fully assess Aaron Judge because he's missed some time over the last couple of years. He is 31 years old, which again, I've talked about, I don't love, but we know who he is and we know what he's done over the course of the year when he has been healthy. I think he's still an S tier player. I think I'd rather have him than Mookie Betts. I'm not quite sure. They play different positions, and that's kind of a different thing. But I'd rather have Acuna and probably Corbin Carroll than Aaron Judge. And really, with Carroll, it's just about the speed and the age. Production now, I think you want Aaron Judge. All right, our friend Bias has re-entered the conversation as I moved on to Francisco Lindor, one of my favorite players of all time. Middle infielder, projects very well, scores the same as Pete Alonso on the season. I can't believe my guy's 29 already, so he's older than Alonso. That said, I'd rather have him than all these guys. The middle infield is hard to come by. I would personally love to have Lindor. I would personally like to have him more than these fellas who are affected by their position in C. As far as production, you're going to get the same amount of everyone in the C tier as Lindor probably, but you're not going to get that in the middle infield. So he's an easy B for me. Manny Machado is 30 years old. Manny Machado plays the corner infield. Manny Machado is being outscored by Ian Happ and Whit Merrifield this season. Obviously, we know he can blow up game weeks. We know he had a slow start, but as he ages, I'm not really sure. I don't know that I really like him. I don't know that I'd rather have him than any of the guys in C. As a matter of fact, I think I'd rather have Randy Arozarena, if not Gunnar Henderson, than Manny Machado. That's a D for me. Shohei Ohtani, S. I don't need to spend much time on that one. Although I could talk about it more and show you highlights, but just go watch a Shohei Ohtani highlight clip. Matt Olson, league leader in home runs at 43. Right in the middle of that Atlanta offense, strikes out a ton. He's the fourth highest scorer this year. He's only 29 years old, but again, he plays first base. I don't know that I could drop him in the B tier with Garcia and Lindor. I don't know that I'd rather have him than Freddie Freeman, although I'm pretty sure I would based on the age. I think he's pretty solidly in the A tier. But coming into the season, I don't even know that I would have said he was a T1. That kind of speaks to the fluidity of things. But also, Matt Olson has just been unreal this season, and if you want him right now, I think you got to be pretty happy about him. Bias alert, it's Jose Ramirez. 13th highest scorer this year, projects amazing down the line. He is 30, he does play the corner infield, but he steals bases, he hits a lot of homers, he finds a way to score. He scores better than Alonso and Devers and Guerrero, and he needs to hang out with, I don't know if they're actually friends, but former teammate Francisco Lindor in the B tier. Personally, I would be elated if I won a Jose Ramirez super rare as a T1, but when I look at the guys in the tiers above, I think I'd realistically rather have them. Austin Riley homered as I was recording this. 26, he does play the corner infield, which isn't great, but he's in the middle of that Atlanta offense, which is very helpful. He's the 16th highest scorer this year at that age. He's going to hit a ton of dingers over the years. He's probably going to get even better. The question is he an A-tier player? I have a hard time saying he's that much better than Jose Ramirez, but I also think I would be just as happy to have him as Elly De La Cruz at this point. That might be more of a reflection on Elly, so I'm going to drop Austin Riley in the B tier, and I'm also going to move Elly down to the B tier. What have you done for me lately? It's the Sorare ambassador himself, Julio Rodriguez. He's been flying under the radar. I did not realize he's been performing as well as he has. 19 homers on the year, 27 stolen bases, and he's just 22 years old. This kind of conflicts with my what have you done for me lately thing, but I want to move him super high on this list. He is being outscored by Riley, but he's 4 years younger and plays a better position. Until he becomes a super producer in either of those categories, I don't know that I can continue to move him up this list. I think B tier for Julio Rodriguez, but I don't know, man. I would rather have him than Adolis Garcia, I think. But again, what have you done for me lately? Adolis Garcia has 10 more home runs and does not steal bases. I just don't know that I would rather have him than Lindor or Ramirez or Austin Riley. I think I'd rather have him than Elly. He's a B plus for me. He's a B plus, but as I look at him next to some of these guys, I just don't know. I don't feel like I can put him in the same conversation as Jordan, Freeman, and Olson, but also I think I might rather have him than Freeman because he's 11 years younger. This also begs the question, what is Elly De La Cruz on pace for? De La Cruz has scored 511 points in 58 games. That is just over half of Julio Rodriguez's 114. If De La Cruz replicated what he's already done in those 58 games over the next 58 games, he would be outscoring Julio Rodriguez by just over 20 points and be a middle infielder and be 21 years old. But because I'm in a wait and see position on De La Cruz, I got to keep him even. I don't know. I'm starting to doubt myself. I can see if you disagree with me. Had Corey Seager not missed a ton of time, he would be in the top 10 scorers this year. He's 29 years old, but he plays in the middle infield. He's an A tier for me, for sure. When I think about the age here and talking about Elly and Julio Rodriguez, I have time to get Elly and Julio Rodriguez as I play Sorare. So I do value the what have you done for me lately way more in that area. Yeah, he's 29, but 29 is still relatively young compared to, getting someone's age 23, 24 seasons where they might not be as good. I just feel like I'm still getting prime Seager, and I want players in their prime. That is Corey Seager. I think he's only going to get better for the next 2 years. And again, the middle infield thing is very, very helpful. I would rather have him than Elly. I am very sure of that, and I definitely would want him more than Francisco Lindor. Marcus Semien, 8th highest scorer this year. Scratch that. He is 32 years old. I do get a little bit worried about that, but he is just tearing the cover off the ball. I think there's some drop-off coming. I don't want to put him with Seager. I think I would like to have him as much as De La Cruz, who is 10 years younger. Juan Soto, even in a down year, is the 13th highest scorer on the season. I do think he gets better. I do think he continues to rise up this ladder. He's scoring just as much as Adolis Garcia at 24 years old. I'm not going to put him in the S tier. I am going to put him in the A tier because he doesn't run a whole lot. Only 6 stolen bases on the year. Because of how seasoned he is, because of how much higher I think his upside actually is, I will put him in the A tier. Had Elly De La Cruz proven what he is over, 4, 5, 6 years like Juan Soto has already at 24 years old, then obviously he'd be higher on the list. Soto has proven that he is a perennial all-star capable of getting on base and driving in runs. I'm not sure Soto's 99 walks help you a ton if he's not actually stealing, but hopefully you get a few more residual runs out of that. He hasn't really. I'm kind of talking myself out of having him in the A tier, but I believe his potential is so immense that I would probably be happier with him than the other guys that we've named. Spencer Strider is Garrett Cole, but younger and better. He's still a pitcher. I'm going to drop him in the B tier. I would be happy to have him, but I would rather have one of these hitters who's actually going to blow up a game week for me instead of Strider, who I could go buy as a starting pitcher only for a fraction of the price of these guys. 19 homers, 19 stolen bases in under 100 games this season. It's been a down year for him as far as what we expect. Fernando Tatis Jr. is also just 24 years old. He has a 40 home run season. He's going to be able to run more and more. I believe that next season, when he's not suspended and can get his work in and start the season fresh, he is going to put up a monster year like Acuna is doing currently. I know I've said, what have you done for me lately? Tatis has been pretty down, but I think he is an end game player. I think he deserves to be in the S tier with the rest of these guys. Kyle Tucker is immensely underrated. He is the 6th highest scorer this season. He is the 2nd best outfielder other than Mookie Betts. I guess the 3rd best. I'm counting Mookie Betts as a middle infielder because I think that's where you're going to end up playing him if you have an elite team. Kyle Tucker's an A very solidly. Very solidly. Although nothing. Kyle Tucker's an A. I hate to do this to my guy, but Trey Turner is no longer a tier 1 player. You cannot have a tier 1 player who hits 8th in the order. I do think he can get back to the point where he is an elite player. He's the 49th highest scorer. He's not actually been as bad as we think. He's done plenty. He's got 12 homers. He's got 22 stolen bases. He's just been abysmal from a standard hitting perspective. He's still outscoring Manny Machado. I'm talking myself into moving him up, honestly. But stolen bases are not home runs. I think really what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move Manny Machado down to an F. I don't want him at all. I don't think he is a tier 1. He has not proven it. He is getting older. He plays a non-premium position. If I won him as a tier 1 for finishing third, I wouldn't, throw my phone in my pool. I wouldn't, toss my monitors in the dumpster, but I'd be pretty upset about it. If I won him as a tier 2 and fourth, I'd be very okay with it. Now, this one just drives me nuts. I do not understand it at all. Here are some of the players who are outscoring Jordan Walker this season: Donovan Solano, Ryan O'Hearn, JJ Bleday, Michael Massey, Travis Jankowski, Will Benson, Owen Miller, Jake Myers, Will Brennan, Jace Peterson, Shea Langoliers, Corey Julks, Edward Olivares, Robbie Grossman, Jan Gomes. I don't think I need to go any further. Why is this guy in tier 1? Yes, he is a highly regarded prospect. Do I think he will be great someday? I think there's a chance. He's a 60 grade prospect, which is like good, but not that great. He does have 80 grade game power, which is to say that he could be a perennial 50 home run guy, but he's got to actually make contact, and he hasn't realized it at all. He hasn't done anything. I'm sure Jordan Walker is a good dude. I know he will be a good player someday, but unfortunately, Jordan Walker is currently the poster boy for everything that is wrong with SorareMLB rewards. Guys who are getting boosted because they are young and they have potential, but they're really not that good yet. And Jordan Walker is not that good at all. I'm half tempted to create another tier just for Jordan Walker at the bottom, because I would much rather have Trey Turner. I would much rather have Manny Machado. I don't even know if Jordan Walker is a tier 2. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to move Turner into the D row. We're going to move Machado into the D row. And Jordan Walker is going to be alone at the bottom as an F. Nothing against Jordan Walker. He's just not there yet. And this is a Sorare problem. This isn't a Jordan Walker problem. And we come to the end of our story with Bobby Witt Jr., 23 years old, shortstop, hits homers, steals bases, had a rough start results-wise, had incredible expected numbers. He's the 14th best scorer this season still after that rough start. And after everything that I said, I'm going to do it. Bobby Witt is an S-tier player. I don't think I would have said that until he finally started to realize the results that he has been recently. But you can't deny a 23-year-old shortstop with power and speed. He's perfect. He just needs to be on a better team. If Bobby Witt was somewhere other than Kansas City, he'd be in the middle of the lineup. You could stack him with some other players, and eventually he's going to be that guy. So this is the tier 1 tier list. It kind of supports a lot of the things that we've said about tier 1 for a while, is that, there can be a star tier, and I think it's all these guys. I think it's Acuna, Carroll, Betts, Judge, Ohtani, Tatis, and Witt. And even you could throw Strider in there just to have a pitcher in there, though I would disagree. But basically, you've got some people who don't deserve to be there. You've got some decent low ends. But for the most part, these guys are tier 1s. Like, I don't think anyone could argue that anyone B or above is not a tier 1 player, except maybe Garcia. I could see it, but I don't think I would argue for it personally. Even in the C row, like Alonso probably is there. Cole is an elite pitcher, so he's got to be there. Devers just has so much promise. I think he's at the bottom, and you could probably make that argument for Guerrero. I don't think Arozarena, Henderson, Turner, Machado are tier 1s, and I've said enough about poor Jordan Walker. I still think he's going to be good, but he just doesn't deserve to be here yet. So that's the tier 1 tier list. Let me know in the comments what you think. Where did I get it wrong? Where did I get it right? And you can even build your own tier 1 list. I'll drop that in the description. You can make your own. Find me at SorareFP on Twitter. Find me in the Discord at SorareFP. And of course, join us, patreon.com/SorareFP. $5 for the projections, $10 for everything else, including the Discord and the app. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on this video if you enjoyed it, and go back and check out our other tier lists before eventually I circle around to all of those tier 3s that are floating around. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I love to hear your feedback and would love to hear more. Until next time, we'll see you.